going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined with my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. And today we're going to be discussing PFF ranking the 49ers as one of the top four as when it comes to grading offensive line's WAR score. Matt, what do you make of this? We were, thinking all year 49ers offensive line is garbage. That's what it looked like, at least when we were watching it. PFF comes in and says, no, actually, they're one of the four best.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. PFF, I really dislike PFF for a lot of reasons. One, they're not transparent. Whatever their algorithm is, they don't tell anybody what it is. And I don't know if they're trying to keep secrets or if they're just not, really, I don't know. They're not transparent at all. So nobody knows what actually goes into it. Second of all, as a baseball guy, I can tell you analytics really works for baseball. When you're talking about all kinds of different statistics that work in the game of baseball, when you look at WAR, which is what they're talking about here, wins above replacement, that doesn't translate to football to me. Football is completely separate from. So in baseball, you have your overall WAR, you have defensive WAR, which, how you field, how you hit, how you combine those overall. And you get a certain number where you have wins above replacement. So say, somebody with a 7.2 WAR or something is worth 7.2 more wins per season than his replacement would be in that same situation. Football's different, though, because how can you calculate WAR for players that only play one side of the ball? They only play offense. They only play defense. And now you're talking about guys, too, who, when you talk about the offensive line, are you talking about giving up sacks? Are you talking about giving up pressures? PFF doesn't even tell you how they define pressures. Is it two steps within the quarterback? Is it changing how the quarterback moves in the pocket? If the quarterback scrambles, does that count as a pressure? Who gets credit for the pressure? Is it the guy that was closest? Is it the guy that moved, is it the guy that got moved furthest back? So it's such a nebulous thing for PFF to just come out and say the 49ers are, top four in WAR when we all watched the games and we're, some of that was bad quarterback play, sure. But no, I watched McGlinchey get knocked on his backside so many times this year. You can't tell me that they were a top four line watching the right tackle get devastated like that the whole time. Slim Mike couldn't even find a sandwich this year. And we're talking about top four WAR. I don't buy it. That's one of the things that bothers me about PFF. Their best asset is rating quarterbacks, and even then, that's really suspect. They tend to overvalue things that don't truly affect the game. So, in my opinion, PFF's way off here, but that's par for the course for them.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is like overthinking things. And like you said, a lot of people have asked Pro Football Focus, could you go into these stats? Could you go into these breakdowns? How did you come up with this? And if they even respond most of their time, it's ridiculous nonsense, with all due respect, PFF. But I was looking at some of the articles that they even put out kind of talking about it, and it's pretty hard to follow. They tweeted out, this tweet that had the 49ers included as one of the top four offensive linemen when it comes to their WAR gradings. And I was hoping they'd have a follow-up tweet that would have some further explanations. I didn't see that, at least as of recording this. So I thought that was a bit strange. Like you said, we all watched the 49ers offensive line this season. They were shaky at best. Outside of Trent Williams, it was a bunch of, crappy players, to put it mildly, that just couldn't really hold their own no matter who they were going against. So I was surprised to see it. But you've talked about PFF previously, at least I know you have in the group chat. I don't know if you have on video. Is this kind of just like another thing that's going into their kind of business model where it's like, is this really need to be broken down like this? And when it is, you guys still aren't even doing it right?
Yeah. It's, PFF, they're useful in certain regards. Like you could bring up all kinds of stats for it. I know that they've made a name for themselves with certain stats, but then you look at some and you're just like, what are they talking about? And this is one of them. We played with replacement offensive linemen for most of the season. Weston Richburg's the starter. So, like, if you're talking about wins above the replacement for the replacement, are we talking about like a grocery store worker? Are we talking about, a gas station clerk? Like, what? how do they even, and then they won't tell you. And it's more of like, oh, we'll just take our word for it. Well, no. Why would I take your word for it when you never explain? And by the way, when next season comes out and you're like, well, we've adjusted our algorithm to make more sense in these 4 areas. Okay, well, then does that render these numbers useless? Like, those don't count anymore? So PFF to me will never be as important as the eye test. And the eye test told me that the 49ers offensive line was bad.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my next point too, is they randomly will just update their algorithms or their equations into how they calculate these percentages and these answers, rankings, I should say. And then it's just kind of like they do it quietly, and it's like, okay, well, what about everything else previously that came out on these rankings using that previous equation? It's almost like, is it moot now, or is that still just taken with a grain of salt? That, hey, by the way, these calculations have been updated. PFF, I feel like you said, some of their things are really useful. Like you can see, overall player gradings, positional breakdowns. I actually do like that, and I think it comes in handy in certain times. But for the most part, a lot of it is like you said, stats work really well and analytics work really well in baseball. I don't think they've quite made that transfer over to football. At least they don't really know how to find that similar breakdown. Like you said, passing the eye test, the 49ers offensive line did not. Is this kind of a little more confirmation that PFF, with all due respect, is trash?
I mean, I just listen. I can't respect people that don't, a system that doesn't give you how they get to that certain point. It doesn't work in any scientific community. The biggest thing that, when we do hypotheses and experiments and things like that in any sort of scientific format, not only do you have to come up with a certain method in terms of how you got there, but it also has to be repeatable. It has to be a repeatable. So if you're just going to, hold your secrets to yourself, like, you're not the first people to do analytics. And we've seen it when you have PFF say one set of numbers, and then you have Pro Football Reference saying another set of numbers, and they have their own analytical formula. It turns into almost like an opinion-based game. There's nothing scientific about this. This is not, anything that should be held to such a standard that, it's the letter of the law and nothing else comes into play. It's a difference between quarterback rating and QBR. Like, it's just a number, and taken outside of context, any type of statistic can be manipulated to fit a narrative if you want it to. We see that in every aspect of life. It's, your kid tells you, well, oh, I only had to do 75% of my homework today. Well, okay, but you know what I'm saying? It's just anybody can make up an arbitrary number. Oh, I only yell at my wife 1% of times. But what if that 1% is like the worst thing you've ever said, right?
Right.
So PFF saying like, nope, these are our numbers. Nope, we're not going to tell you how we got them. You just have to believe them. That doesn't fly with me. And this is case in point. Anybody watching the 49ers line is going to go top 4. Really? No way. No way. And it's like, how do you even get that number? And by the way, single factor analysis is just WAR, wins above replacement. What does that even mean? It obviously doesn't mean that they're the 4th best line. Maybe their players were 4th best in terms of how good they were over the people behind them, but that doesn't mean anything on a practical level. So we're talking about wins above replacement, and you're looking at the rest of the 49ers line that didn't play, and you're saying they were 4th, they had the 4th most wins above replacement. Okay, well, that doesn't say how good or bad a line is. It just says how bad the backups are. So, it doesn't really mean anything, but it's cool to put it on a splash screen and be like, look, see, the 49ers line wasn't that bad. It's like, no, they were really bad. And you're choosing this one cherry-picked stat to say, no, they weren't. So, yeah, it's just more of the same from PFF.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Who are you talking about as far as replacements? And like you said earlier, they already were replacements, most of them. So it kind of gets a little tricky there. But the fact that you can't see these equations and try and replicate them yourself, I think is the most troublesome to me. But that's PFF for you. I think that's going to do it for today's episode of Niners News, guys. If you like what you see, do us a solid. Hit that subscribe button. We are trying to reach our goal of 2,000 subscribers. Somebody will win a 49ers jersey once we do. Like this video and comment below. Do you think the 49ers offensive line was one of the 4 best in the NFL this past season? Comment yes or no.
And go ahead and click the bell for notifications so you never miss a new video. We love having you here. Thank you as always. And until next time, go Niners.